So a little introduction for those of you who do not know me. I'm of Korean ancestry. Both my parents are full-blood Koreans, and I was born and raised in Japan. And my parents sent me to the American school in Japan because of various reasons. One of it, because they did not want me to go through the discrimination that the Koreans in Japan go through. I know we all look similar, but our last names are the giveaway. It's like, okay, so you're that. So anyway, to prevent me from experiencing that very harsh discrimination, so I learned 3 languages as a child. I also learned at a young age that it was so embarrassing to hear my parents speak so loudly in Korean in public, because we were the minority, we were the oppressed, and to be in the public and everybody knowing, ooh, they're Koreans, it was embarrassing for me. I understood that sense of being in the minority, and at one point I actually said, I don't want anything to do with my language. Not because of that, but from what others have said, you don't talk right. You know, that's not how you say it. I mean, all these things I kind of picked up and said, well, then forget it. So, all those experiences I bring to the table, but also as a young child, starting at age 5 or 6, I was tutoring English to adult learners in Japan. So I have the experience of teaching. I also taught Japanese at a public charter school in Santa Fe. I learned, by the way, I will announce that yes, I picked up my mother tongue, Korean, as an adult. And that was tough. As an adult, you have very little excuse to, not know. And so, but what I learned was roll with it, take your criticisms. Maybe they're very helpful, but also I learned that you can make mistakes, and if you're not trying, you're not. If you're not making mistakes, you're not trying. So all these things that are right now in the bundle when we deliver language instruction, I just happen to have that experience. So that part's done. So my topic today is, why is our Native American language important today? Those of you who've been to our training workshops may have already seen this, but I want to share this with those who may not have had. So we're going to talk about, why are we teaching? Why are we learning? What's the big goal? And then based on this big goal, how do we design the instruction so that it reaches that goal? Who are our Native American language learners? What are they like? And I think this morning we heard some wonderful description of Native American language teaching and learning is very unique. It's very emotional. So all of those things we will talk about. Okay, so I can skip the other 2. So let's look at who are our Native American language learners. They come in all ages, of course, but typically they come with varying degrees of speech levels or proficiency, and differing degrees to the connection to the community and to that language. And they are very, very, very different from students learning a foreign language. the added responsibility that we put upon them, and some of them actually personally feel, is that they have to make sure the language lives on to future generations. So if you were learning, if you were a learner, so how many of you are still learners of your language? 1, 2, 3, quite a few. So that's a huge responsibility. You want to get it right, you want to do it quickly. There's an urgency in every language. So that's a huge responsibility, whereas if you walk into a Spanish class, oh, I want to learn Spanish, you don't worry about that. So I think we have to be very mindful of that characteristic of our native language learners. So our very first question, what is the big goal? So instead of us answering, let's look at what young people have told us. We've asked our young people, or we just heard and we actually got permission to share this. So here's what they said. We want to be able to speak the language. We're tired of learning numbers, animals, colors every year. And yes, some of them came from BIE schools. Not all. Okay, we want to be able to talk in our language about what we face every day. We have friends who need help. We want to talk about those things. And there was mention about, why don't we be able to speak while doing something that's relevant? It kind of ties into that. It will be cool to play basketball in our language. Our opponents won't know our calls. Very smart, very good. And then a Hopi, this is from Sheila's research, but he said, we're doing, or participating in the social dances for a reason, for rain prayers, for life. You're not just doing this for entertainment. And when the drum goes, you feel it inside. It gets your heart beating the same way as anyone else. High school youth, I want to know the whys of the ceremonies, not just memorize dances and songs on feast days without really understanding why we do what we do. Another high school student, since I started learning my language, I feel more connected to my community, my people, our doings, our land, especially my great-grandma. I want to learn my language to make sure my younger sisters and brothers can speak it. And I have to start with myself. It's not spoken in my home. I want to learn about the history of my people. The history that are not in any of the history textbooks in school. Your history, our history, my history. So these are voices of young people. Some date back to 2001, and they're now probably adults with families. I think it's kind of important as instructors to let them tell us what they want to learn. So this is a summary. Communicate in daily life. Gain deeper knowledge of their culture and traditions through the language. Connect to community for deeper self-identity. Connect to elders and learn our history through language. So imagine if all these things can happen in your language. So we have to think about, if that's what they want, are we delivering what would really, really, really interest them? So another question, do you have classrooms, and this is not a reflection on you, but do you have classrooms of students who are like, oh, we have 30 more minutes of this. Oh, I have to go to that language class. Be honest. 1, 2, not mad, not too many, that's good. But it's true, sometimes we deliver things that don't have any interest. It is not relevant to what they want to learn. So we got to look at that a little bit. So this part, so when we look at what we're teaching, we have to ask some of these questions like, are they able to do things in the language? I like what Francis referred to as, remember how you learned your language? You remember the smell, the touch, the visuals, all the experiences of how you learned and how it was there for you. And it was in the doing of things. So it's not, can I memorize 100 numbers, 20 animal names? And as Jerry said, I'd like them to connect the dog to the color and the number, expressing. So how do we help our learners to meet these targets? So we'll talk about, I don't know if we'll have, you can ignore the last bullet. So this is an example of what do we want the learners to be able to do in the language. Now this is from maybe the teacher's point of view. There are things that are important, and this is something they, as a member of that community or nation, needs to know. And one of the important things in any culture is greetings. And I think Chris was mentioning this is how we are, this is how we greet each other, and we know we're in good company. So greetings, from the very top is the Maori, forehead and nose touching each other, exchanging breath. And sometimes there's utterances like kia ora or something said. Here we have a Plains Indian way of greeting, and they go down the row shaking hands. The universal shaking hands. And the last image is an Asian, probably more Japanese. The degree in which you bow indicates what you know about manners. So the first one is a casual, oh, hello, nice to meet you. Peer to peer. You really don't know each other's rank, so you just do that. If you know somebody's rank and they are higher than you, you go to 45 degrees, the second image. And then the last 90-degree bow is for a superb person. Dalai Lama, I don't know. Whoever is very, very high-ranking or important, or that you revere very deeply. So appropriate mannerism is language. And sometimes we forget to connect language to doing things, and those are things that you want to examine in your language activities. And by the way, I think there is a handout on all this, so I'm going to skip a few of the sheets. So this part is about just verbalizing. Are we able to connect our goals through the activities that we instruct? And do they take the learners to deeper knowledge, which they seem to very much want? Are the activities related to everyday daily situations? Language is not very effective if you can't use it in a daily situation. So if it's only for feast days, you know what feast day language is. That's only occasional. But we have life to live. We have to do laundry, we have to rake the leaves, we have to drive the car, go shopping. What if all that everyday things start being in the language? That's like what it used to be. Are we teaching that? And do we have to teach it? Can we just do it and they'll pick it up? And those last two things are important. If your students are looking at the watch, can't wait to get out, let's look at how we are doing. That's part of our self-assessment. Something's not clicking, and it's not always your fault. Trust me, I've been a teacher, so I know. But sometimes you have to watch for those signs and address what it is that they're not getting that makes them not enthusiastic. And then in the lessons and in the time that you have with your students, are they sitting and passively receiving information, or are they actively using language as part of the lesson? Okay. So these are some examples, all from Hawaii, how they really don't teach the language. It's an immersion school, so everything is in Hawaiian. But they do everything in Hawaiian. So they have a lesson. It's a lesson about maybe color or how do we behave in certain situations with the ukulele singing. Little children, I think this was kindergarten. And then they have classes for adults, faculty, staff, parents, on the hula, how to do the hula. They grow their own plants, they harvest them, they cook with them. So all of that agricultural activity is part of the curriculum. They grow traditional things like taro root, pineapple, and maybe not pineapple, but they had things that are traditional to their Hawaiian culture. The last one is husbandry, raising the cute little pig that's going to be for feast day. He's only half the size. But the students go, usually older, high school kids, they go and learn how to take care of them, clean the pen, feed them, etc., all in the language. And of course, at one point, they have to say goodbye, I guess, or hello, whichever. But all of these activities are part of the curriculum. Is there any classroom in here? Oh, maybe that one. No, it's not confined to classrooms. So, before I launch you into an exercise that you have to do, any questions? I used to do group exercise, which was, what is your big goal? What is the big goal? So maybe I'll go ahead and do that. But the more important question that I want you at your tables to discuss and report out is, think about that section where, what do your learners need to know because of your culture or behavior and things like that? But they're not here to tell us, but think about, what do learners want to learn? Maybe some of you already have that information. How many of you are teaching middle school, high school? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many are elementary level? Most of you, okay. At the elementary school level, until they get to be maybe 5th and 6th grade, they're very receptive and absorbing, but they're going to have their opinions very soon. So if you already hear those, that's what we want to hear from you. What is it that they want to learn? Is that good? So the 2 questions I want you to, are you solo? You can join a group if you like. The 2 questions, what is the big goal? Why is the Native American language important today? And the second question, what do the learners want to learn and need to learn? So the discussion starts now. What about 10 minutes? And see how things are. If you need more time, we'll make more time. Is ready to share with us what they came up with, the big goal, what the learners need to know and want to learn.
Okay, for this table, the goal is to keep language alive and keep culture, identity, carry on values and traditions. When becoming or being an adult is crucial to culture activities. That was the reason why we talked about the goal and said that this was very important. And then what do learners want or need to learn is they need to know and learn through, or what they want to learn is through songs and meanings of the song, what it's talking about, and also through Hopi stories that it has lessons, ways of life, legends, and the respect in the stories. And what they need is greetings, need to know how the male and the female way of etiquette, and hearing the language daily, listening and speaking. I say, instructor say, I say, we say together, and you say, individual.
So what we mean by that bottom one is when we're teaching the language and they want to learn is when we're something that you're teaching, okay, I say first, then we say together as a class, okay, now your turn by yourself. That way they have 2 times to have that help and then keep practicing that way maybe the language, they'll be able to catch on to the lesson being taught.
I'm a different tribe. I'm Havasupai, so they did their own, and I did mine. It's really simple. The big goal for our community is to help our youth remember who they are. They all, I think around age 20 and under, I hear more English speakers, and then from around 19, 20 on up, we all speak Supai. So I see that gap, but they understand us. They understand what we say. We can talk to them and they'll understand us, but they'll answer us in English. And then what the learners need to know or want to know, what I've seen is for them to communicate with us, for us to communicate with them. And they do need to hear the language daily. It shows that as adults, we're not doing our part by speaking it to each other. We get comfortable speaking English to each other, even though we can speak the language. And then I've heard our elders, as they're getting older, they're forgetting the English language, So they're reverting back to our native language, and I'm hoping our kids will continue to understand what we're saying and be able to communicate with us and our elders.
Thank you. Who would like to share next? Thank you.
Good morning, Loluma. We're also Hopi too. And what we discussed as learners our learners need to know, it is, yes, the language, primarily, majority. And we did a summer program, Hopi language, and we did come to find out a lot of our children didn't even understand. Very few, could understand, but were, having a hard time speaking. So we did a lot of that every morning, the greeting, the prayer, the song, which helped them understand a lot more of, what they were needing to know, needing to learn. So yes, our language is really dying out, and for us to have more of these programs to help our little ones and also our younger parents to try to, talk to their children, every day, any word, simple word can help, which is I'm trying to do with my grandson now. They might say it wrong, but we tell them it's okay, you're learning. Because with our language, our songs, which is going to help them to learn how to speak it, what it all means. It describes everything, our songs. And what we want our children to learn, to know is respect. As long as they respect themselves, they'll respect others, and that's what we, taught them. Na kefti dani, respect yourself. Du kefti dani, respect others, which is going to help them, have more of an open mind to not just our own culture, but to everybody else. And that respect will help one another, to learn, to continue our language. Because if we lose our language, we lose our culture, we lose our identity, which the judge talked about. We don't want to lose our identity. We want to continue going on. Without that Pueblo revolt, we won't be who we are today. So, as well.
Since we were talking about the school system, and even like I say, our language is important. That's what makes us who we are and make us all unique. I kind of went down through to what do second language learners want and need to learn. What I usually did was I would make a circle and I would put in like Hopi Lavai, our language. Then I had them brainstorm. And whatever they decided, I would write it on the board. And the more they thought about it, pretty soon that whole circle was getting bigger and bigger. And so I would say, okay, what is important to you that we can break this down? Because everything that you listed is all Hopi Lavai. Now, what is important to you as what you think would be it? So I would put stars onto the ones they wanted, and if that's what they want to learn, that's what we'll teach. It's just that having to get the materials is time-consuming, but if that's what these language learners want to learn, that's our biggest goal. Once they decide what they want to learn, then you'll be able to reach a goal. That goal is for them to decide. Identity is usually one of them, songs, prayers, all those other things, but that's what they want to do, not what I want them to learn. It's what they want and that what they need. So you can still build on with daily routines in the classroom. And we were just talking about sometimes our teachers, as our language teachers aren't there, that's when we can fill all these in. And that's our commitment as to our kids and what they want, and to have them to start, at least, like you say, it's going to take years for them to really speak. It's going to take a long, long time, but if we can keep it going and going within the classroom, it can be done.
We had two cultures represented at this table, and we agreed that the big goal is cultural survival. And the reason why we know this is because some of us have asked our learners what they wanted to learn, and a lot of the time it isn't, I want to learn how to add in Hopi. I want to learn how to use a certain word to write a sentence. It's things like, I want to be able to sit down with my grandparents and talk with them. I want to listen to the Katsina songs in the plaza and understand what the message of those songs are. I want to go to a baby naming and participate with my mother in naming that baby and using the correct Hopi words. And if you look at all of that, every single desire or wish that they have is something that takes them back to their community, their way of life, and what needs to be carried on there. So it's all cultural survival. A lot of the times, like Dorothy just said here, we by-step the students, and we decide what the students should learn. And I know from a lot of these workshops that it should involve the students telling us, the learner telling us what they want to learn. There are just so many obstacles in teaching the language in a school versus doing it somewhere else where it can be more natural. And one of the things that our group came up with is we know what the students want. They tell us what they want to learn. But as teachers in the schools, we cannot do that all without the help of their parents and without the help of the other community stakeholders, because when we acquired the language, it was a whole village. It started with our family, and then it branched out to education in the cornfields, at the sheep farm, in the plaza. When you got initiated, just everyday part of life that's language, and it's so hard to duplicate in the classroom today. No matter how hard we try to put that cultural context into the classroom, it's not going to be the same. So that brought up the question of, have we really looked at our stakeholders to meet the needs or desires of our students? Is language really important? Because the reason why we came to that is because there's 3 of us here who are teachers. I think we've reached out to our parents. We've offered adult language classes for the sake of those parents learning what's being taught to their students in the classroom so it could be reinforced at home. Okay, the first adult class meeting, you get maybe 12, 15 adults. Then it starts to dwindle until you end up with 2. How many of those are actually parents of the students? 0. They're missionaries, like on my reservation, who want to do their missionary work through the language. I don't get any parents in my classroom. So is language really important on our reservation? We have to find out. that part of the problem. I don't think our people really understand where we stand as far as language decline on in some communities.
Asquali.
Good morning, my relatives. My name is Zelda Winier. I'm from the Yakima Nation. At this table, we talked about a big goal, and I agree with the lady that just spoke. I guess our responsibility as language preservers is to build that bridge, and that bridge goes across many. We discussed it. It starts with BIE, then to our school admin, our teachers, our students, parents, and community, tribal environment, and social environment. We need the buy-in of the language importance from all of those. That's a big goal for us. And we talked about the parents also, and how some of our students, we have 8th to 12th grade in our school. So in high school level, they have a lot of needs to be comfortable in what they're doing. So comfort zones, safety zones in learning their language. And some of them tell me, well, all right, I know this, but I ain't got nobody to talk to. And I try to talk to my parents and they just tell me, quit that, I don't even know what you're saying. And so our high school children are dealing with those types of relationships when they're learning their language in a school environment. So building that bridge across these communities is a great goal. And one of the other things that I think was, we discussed at one time at our school a few years back, I tried to make a relationship with our staff, they were native, non-native, about using the language in our classrooms. And right off the bat, as soon as I said it, a couple of them told me, oh no, that's not happening. I'm not going to use your language. And then right after that, even some of our own tribal members closed the window on me because they were allowed to. And I would like to see that. And the thing they said that justified it was, it's not in my job description. And I feel as though if you're going to work at a school with Native children, that you should accept the fact that you might have to use the language and you might have to join in our culture. So that's what we discussed here at our table. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello. If you don't mind, I'm going to sit for a minute because I have notes to read off. But we were talking about the big goal. And one of the things that we thought was most interesting is that proficiency should be the focus and not necessarily the deficit of the language. Because when you put it in those connotations where the student always is not measuring up, then they feel it and they don't want to play anymore. But if they work with the proficiency, because some students will have grandmas and aunties and all those that still speak that language, and they'll be more proficient than a kiddo that has two parents that went to public school in Albuquerque and don't have that level of proficiency. And we thought that if you have a deficit model mentality, it hinders that ability to learn. I know, and if you've taken, I took a Spanish class, and she was always telling us, oh, great work, great job. I can read Spanish really well. Speaking it is not the greatest, but I felt like I knew enough Spanish to get me through college. And I think if we focus on, help kids understand that part of being proficient in language. And I come from the other part where the EEL side, where they have to be proficient in English. So if I don't come, and that was a great point one of my colleagues made, was if I don't come from that you don't know enough English to the English you have is good enough for now, but let's get better, then I think my kids would be more apt to participate instead of, oh my gosh, this is being done to me. And then the other thing is that one of the topics brought up was the grading in it, to give them partial credit for the things they do right. They may not be able to hold a whole conversation in a greeting, but getting the first word down, okay, we'll take it. That's good enough. But the next time I'm going to expect this much from you, or I'm going to expect this much from you, or have a conversation with someone who's really good at it. And then if you can hold that conversation with that person, then I'll give you the grade. Because in that Native American, the way that I was taught was, oh, you don't know it? My grandma would go here, and she'd start, of course it was in Pima, but here, and she'd start doing it with me. And then she'd say, now you do it in Pima again, and I'd have to do it. And even if I did it, that could be the fourth time I did it. If it was wrong, but she didn't say it was wrong. She just said, here, do it. And she'd show me again until I could do it. From folding towels to making fry bread or whatever it was, she was always, here, do it. And I think that's the culture that we're missing with our language. That here, I'll show you and then you'll do it. And the patience that comes with that, I think too, because we get so busy. The last thing, and then normalizing mistakes. Just like I said, my grandmother knew I was going to make a mistake. She knew I was going to make it probably 10 more times, but it was normal to make a mistake. I didn't go, oh, I don't want to do it anymore because I'm going to be wrong. I don't want to ever do it again. I don't want to try to test again because I'm going to be wrong. I think if we make language something that, yeah, everyone's going to make a mistake and it's going to be okay and we're all going to be all right, I think that'll help serve our students more. The last thing we talked about, and everybody's kind of hit on it, is that as teachers of language, we have to bring with it the culture that comes with that language, and that everybody has said that to the degree. Hence the way that instead of just giving them the sentences and the words necessarily, let's give them the conversations. Let's give them the real conversations that happen at dinner. How was your day? How was school? Did you have a good day? Was it a bad day? Why was it a bad day? Those are the things that my teenagers, and I'm about ready to cry, are yearning for. They want that attention in their language. And I see it, and being me, I can't give that to them. But I sure as heck going to give them as much as I can. Because I was sharing with the ladies, there has to be a way. Being a big boarding school like we are and all the tribes we have, suicide is real in my world. It's like a regular thing. So-and-so did this over the summer break. So-and-so did this over Christmas. So-and-so, do you remember so-and-so? Well, they did this, and they're gone. And there has to be a way in our culture, somewhere, that our kids can communicate that better to us. The things they're feeling and the emotions. It has to be somewhere. And I don't know where, but I think this whole conversation of relating to it and pulling and allowing them those mistakes and those feelings, I think that's our way to help our nation. Because I get them all. I get 81 different tribes and these teenagers that just need, and I don't know how to give it to them other than to try my best. Hence, I'm here. And I appreciate everything you all do, because there's not a tribe in here that we don't have on our campus. And I appreciate it. Thank you.
Good morning. My name's Arlene, and we're from Autumn High School. I'm not a teacher. I'm a bus driver. But for the first one, the first question is able to learn and understand and speak the words to communicate with the elders, songs, culture, and tradition. And for me, living on the east side of the reservation, and now I work on the west side of the reservation, the dialect is very different. They speak faster, and to understand, it's like for me to translate in Autumn, I had to really think and try to respond back, because if I don't say the right word, then either I'll get corrected or they say, well, this is not how you say it. So like with these guys, Diane and Arlene, I speak slower, or I don't know how you'd say it, but the dialect is very different. So one time I was saying we were going to go pick choya buds, and we call it jorim, but I was corrected, and it's hanum. So, but it's the same thing, but it's called different. So it's even from the students, and when I talk in Autumn, or they'll ask me, I'll try to say something, but they'll like it's different. So that's my thing, but I'm still learning, and I can speak Autumn up to a certain point, but like that, there's nobody to speak to. And when I went to TO, Jan, I learned from her, and there's nobody else out there that speaks Autumn in where we work. So it's kind of hard, but the dialect's different. And then on the second one, it's important because so we can speak our native language, but it's learning the dialect.
I just wanted to go on that, like the West Side, no, I forgot what I was going to say. The West Side, yeah, they have a different dialect as opposed to the East Side. So, and it was in the same situation. Our culture teacher came from the West Side to teach at our East Side. So when our kids would say something, she would correct them. And they said, well, this is the way I learned. Even us as adults, I was told I didn't know how to speak the language because I spoke it differently from her. And we tried to tell her, well, this is how we learned it. So another thing that I noticed is that the big push to bring back our language is going on. But how are we going to bring back our language when even our elders don't speak the language most of the time? Out of respect, when I come across an elder or someone who I think is older than me, I talk to them in Autumn. And I'm surprised when they turn around and communicate with me in English. And I'm like, how are we bringing back this language if that's how we're going to respond to someone who's trying to talk to you in your native language? But I think that's one of my goals. If I were going to be the culture teacher, is to have the children be able to communicate, do a greeting in total native language by the end of the school year. I had worked with my granddaughter who was 2 years old, and she learned the greeting and how to introduce herself and how to ask me what my name was, all in the native language. And then a few other things about introducing her mother, introducing her dad. But when her mother got her back, she lost it all. So, and yet her mother talks the language. Not as fluently, but still, it's not being used. So how are we going to bring back this language if we're not going to use it now? We need to use it now. Thank you.
I'm Akbar Adam. I'm from the Hill River Reservation in Arizona, and the Ton Adam are our sister tribe too, because we understand each other, but there's there's a little difference in dialect. My question was, I have a question for this BIE representative, I'm sorry, brother, is we work at the BIE schools, and she had mentioned about suicide, and so I work with them from little ones to 8th graders. We have over 500 students, and I'm the only one there. And we're going to a new school. There's a new school being built and a brand new school, and they're anticipating more than 500 students to come, and I'm the only one there. But I see the students 45 minutes each, and some of them are standing at the door, and it's a revolving door, and I have to readjust my thinking from little face to the 8th graders in between. So my question is, when the 8th graders, the older ones, as this lady said over here, is suicide, which is very big on our reservations, I'm sorry to say. But in the schools, they want to know. The older ones, they want to ask, they're asking questions. What happens? Where do we go when we die? What happens? And it's been there, and so there's a fine line between holistic religion, spirituality in BIE schools. You can't talk about that. You're just here to teach the language, but that's part of us. That is us. How do we address this when our hands are tied and say, you can't talk, you're not a counselor? I am a counselor because I'm a grandma. They come to me asking questions. They want to learn. They want to know why and how and where do we go and how come. And so it's like, so what do we say to them when they do this? And I just tell them, I'll talk to you after class. I'll talk to you when class is over or school is over. And they say to me, because I'm also a minister, they'll say, ask her, she knows, you know, and then I can't, like I said, there's a fine line between that spirituality at school. I will say that I am glad that we do pray in our school before events and stuff, and I'm very thankful for that. But other than that, when it comes to the individual students, the older ones, when they want to know certain things, and they also want to know about relationships. What about this? What's, you know? But our hands are tied because we are in a BIE school.
I just wanted to share, I think a lot of the teaching is, you know, we're here to enforce, to try to get our languages back, but a lot of it is from the home. I have grandchildren that stay with me a lot, and like when I'm cooking something, I told my grandson, he was asking me, he said, what are you cooking, Grandma? And I said, babasito. And he was standing there, he goes, what? I said, babasito. I'm cooking babasito. So he looks at me and then he ran to his brother and he goes, Grandma's making babasito. So now when they see me cooking, it's potatoes. So when they see me cooking it and they say, yay, we're gonna eat babasito. So now it's babasito. So those are the kinds of things that, you know, us as teachers is to try to teach it, you know, go to our grandchildren, because that's how they learn things. And like right now, my grandsons, they don't know what rotten means. They know it in autumn. They say jua. It's jua, because when they were at the daycare, I guess one of them wouldn't drink his milk, and the teacher asked him, why are you not drinking your milk? And he said, because it's jua. And they said, what? Because it's jua. And so they were like, okay, we have to ask his mom about it. So they asked his mom when she picked him up. He said this word, and they were trying to say it. And she goes, what did you tell him, son? And she said, it's jua. The milk was jua. And so she said, oh, it means run.
Okay, how many tables have not reported out? Because we are short on time. If you want to leave for lunch on time, we are done, except this table.
I just wanted to do our goals, which she forgot, is for us at our school, because we're a high school and we're very small, all the teachers there are non-native, except for myself, who was a paraprofessional, and our kitchen workers and our office staff are native. And, but our goal for our students, because we are a high school, and our high school, we have to have that credit for our students to graduate. So it's for them to learn the language and to take a proficiency language test through our tribe to become certified teachers. And that is what I will be doing Saturday. Hopefully I pass to become a certified teacher. And that is our big goal for our juniors, our sophomores, juniors, and seniors to be able, once they finish high school, that they go on and take that test and become certified so that they can go on and teach the language classes. So that was our goal for our school. Thank you.
Okay, I have to check in with my clock. We have like 3 minutes. So somebody had their hand up. Oh, that table didn't get yours done. Okay, let's do you, and then very, very briefly, I have to summarize before we...
Okay, real quick. We do agree that language, the major goal is communication with our elders, especially our parents. So with that being said, the learner, we talked about the learner, and our Hopi friend here, she first said that we have to ask our kids, our children, what do you want to learn? That was the important emphasis. We agreed with the lady, what does the learner want to learn? And so that they can have that input and their interest in the language would be more enhanced if we ask them first what they want to learn.
Thank you very much for your input and your thought process. I think as professional teachers in a school system, it's very, very, very easy to slip into, today I'm going to teach this. What we really have to, the summary is this, that we have to deliver what they need and want. And I think we all kind of concluded that independently. And from hearing everybody else's comments about how you do that would be very different. I'm going to give you one very interesting project that just occurred in a pueblo. They wanted to do a community survey. So I was asked to come and help facilitate, what's this going to look like? So I came all prepared. Well, you gather the people, and you'll, of course, if you serve dinner, they'll come. And they all agreed. Oh, definitely there'll be food. But I had all these ideas of how to do the survey, more like physical, interactive. But they said, oh, too much words. It's too many words. They're not going to sit and read that, and even if it's interactive, it's still words. So they came up with this amazing visual way in which people can take surveys. So instead of the sheet of paper that has questions and somebody says, I'll volunteer and sit with so-and-so and so-and-so and do it for them. And the committee said, forget it. They're not going to answer it that way. So what happened was there were posters. What is your age group? And there were all these numbers. Where do you use your language? How do you want to learn? And all they had to do was put stickers. And guess what they did for what are the obstacles in learning or teaching the language? They said, have a big basket and have them write it in, what the challenges are, crumple it, and throw it in the basket. It's a symbol of challenge, but challenge that they want to get rid of and somehow resolve. I thought, so all my idea was chucked. The idea of interactive state, but it was the most of, so the entire families came because it wasn't just a survey, it was called The Joy of Our Language. The committee said, we have lost this joy, the spirit of our language. We're teaching it like it's Spanish or French, or we're teaching it like a school subject. That's not our language. Our people do not react that way with our language. So that was like wonderful. And so the entire family, even the 5-year-old said, I want to put that sticker on my. They were all engaged. So when we talk about bridging school and families, we have to really think creatively. Think about what is it that every age in that family would enjoy. It has to be fun. The survey, if it were the way it was originally, it'd be like, oh, not again. We've been surveyed to death. This way, they are calling the shots. So I just wanted to share that little sample, which encapsulates a lot of the things you've brought to the table. And hopefully we can explore some other interesting, creative, and engaging ways in bridging families and school with the language.